Hello, my mindful meal preppers. It's still the same day. I'm still in the same clothes. Bear with me, all. This is it. We are in our last meal of this week, and I am so excited to be out of this kitchen, if I'm honest. I love cooking, but not for this long. And you would think that relatively quick dishes would equate to like relatively quick kitchen time, but we're pushing a solid like 5 hours in the kitchen now, and I'm just starting this third meal. I will get faster as I go. You do. That's part of it's part of cooking, is getting faster and better and more efficient at it. And I think talking on top of it doesn't really help my case. But regardless, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time for you today. Thank you for joining me in this kitchen for one final meal this week. I am so excited to make chicken pot pie with you all. I've been craving comfort food, and this to me is one of my versions of comfort food. There's going to be a few. We talked a lot about credit last time and ways to establish it in the first video, and then what banks strategically look for when they do things like pull your credit report. And I realized towards the end of that video that I think I kind of approached this backwards, and I need to take a step back. Establishing credit, we're good. What banks look for when applying for credit, good. But let's also just talk about credit reports, a couple more things that we look for in terms of credit worthiness when you request credit and request those loans, and the impact of hard versus soft inquiries, what to look for on your own so that you're not just leaving it up to the banks to tell you whether or not you're credit worthy, and so on and so forth. Yeah, let's tie back our hair if we have to, put on an apron if you've got one, and for the last time this week, let's get cooking good looking. There's a lot to learn today at Life's Table. Okay, now let's go ahead and bring out a saucepan to get our chicken going. Now, generally speaking, the recipes that call for chicken in chicken pot pie do not recommend chicken thighs. They specifically typically like the lighter meat, like chicken breast meat. But unfortunately for them and me, I only have chicken thighs this week. So we'll go ahead and drain them if you need to, get the juices out. All right, so going in relatively flat into this pan. And then what I want us to do in this as well is get a couple of bouillon cubes in here. Again, food tastes like what you cook it in. So when we cover this with water and let this just cook in its own deliciousness, that's fine, but I like to add like a little extra flavor. So I'm going to wash my hands and then add a bouillon cube, and I'm going to cover this with water. I'm not trying to like boil it or anything like that fully through, but just cover yours with water, and we'll set it on the stove over medium-high heat to start. Gross. My least favorite part about cooking with meat is the juice. All right. So, dry hands. I'm gonna go ahead and drop a bouillon cube in here, as well as give it a nice little coating of salt and pepper as well. So 1, 2, 3, perfect. That should be plenty salty for now because we're gonna add more salt later. But just to season the chicken a little bit with a nice little sprinkling of salt, sprinkling of pepper, and then I'm gonna drop 1 bouillon cube in. Bouillon. And then we cover with water and set this on the stove, again, medium to medium-high heat. Just barely covered. Set to medium, and we want this to cook through. We definitely don't want it to like still be raw in the middle, but It's going to do a fair bit more cooking in the oven when we bake it. So we're not going to cook it for too long, maybe like 10 minutes or so. Just long enough for it to like cook through, but still could go for longer. Like I believe we discussed in the intro, I think I might have gone about this a little bit backwards. So let's take one step back and let's look at the credit report as a whole and what that even means and what a credit score is and so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and get our cutting boards out. We're going to start chopping up our vegetables, and I'm going to bring out the saucepan so we can get ready to saute. Onion, celery. I've got leftover carrots here from last week as well, so I'm going to do onion, celery, carrots. A little bit of garlic is going to go into getting sauteed. Assuming you've had chicken pot pie before, you know around the size of the pieces that we're going for, but if not, we've got frozen veggies here, and you want your fresh vegetables to be around the same size as the frozen ones. That's a pretty good measure. We'll use the big knife today. So when we go to a bank, we asked, based off of our goals, we ask for a certain amount of money or a certain amount of credit. And again, to assess how trustworthy we are, our banks are going to pull our credit report, which is that history that will show things like payment history, like the types of accounts that we have, the stuff that we talked about in the previous video. All right, what I did not talk to you about is what happens with that. Based off of what is seen on the credit report, that is what then determines what we call our credit score. Now, I feel like many more of us are familiar with our credit scores. Many of us are very good at tracking our credit scores because we understand things like the higher the score, the better our interest rates tend to be. There's a few other things actually that we'll talk about here. When we think about credit scores, generally speaking, we think about FICO scores. Our FICO score is a number between 300 and 850. That, from the credit report and from what is seen there, it is our score of trustworthiness. It is our score of creditworthiness. We're done. Our onion is folding underneath us. That means we are ready to go. Chop the head and the tail off of the celery. I'm going to certainly slice this end down. Again, we want slices around the size of the frozen veggies. So we're going to get them smaller. All right. So I've split the end into 4, and I'm going to split the top into 3. 1, 2. Oh, I guess I'm going to do 4 all the way up and down. Whoops. Higher is better because it means that we are, on paper, more trustworthy to lenders. There are other credit scores out there. The next most popular one that comes to mind is the one, it's called Vantage 3. It's a similar scoring based system. They care about very similar things, but different credit scores will have different scales and different values. So don't just assume that like, oh, my FICO score is good. I'm in the, mid to high 700s, so I must just be good all around. Hopefully that is the case. Like, I sincerely hope that that's true. But it's not always a guarantee, and we'll talk about why that is in just a second. Wash and peel your carrots. Ooh, we are getting plenty hot. So let me turn this down a little bit. I'll turn it off actually for a little bit while I finish peeling these carrots because I want them to cook evenly, and certainly the carrots are going to take the longest. Get our veggie peeler out of the dishwasher. So here's what the credit report shows. Again, the biggest one is payment history, and specifically, did you miss any payments? Because again, that's what the banks care about the most. Your lenders in general care about the most when they're checking your credit. Are you good at honoring your promises? Talked about that at length last video, so I'm not going to go further into it here. That said,
when somebody pulls your credit report, it's not just like, are you good at honoring your promises now? It looks as far back as 7 years, all right? Information stays on your credit report for years and years and years, which means that potentially the credit account that you open up at at 18, when you don't necessarily totally understand what credit is or what it means or its significance, and so if you miss a payment 1 month, it's okay because I'll get you back in the next month, it'll be fine. That stuff, those missed payments, that negative information stays on this account, on these reports for 7 years. And the decisions that you make at 18, I mean, imagine that. Imagine if this applied anywhere else in life. Imagine if you went on a date with somebody in your mid-20s and they were able to look you up and find like social media posts that you were posting from 7 years ago. What would they see? What would they find? How much would you be sweating if that was something that happened? Okay? The decisions that you make financially at potentially 18, whenever it is that you first open up these accounts, they follow you for 7 years. All right? So, it's not just, did you make the payment? Are you good for it? It kind of feels like, especially for my younger people, have you ever missed a payment? Have you always been good for it? Okay? And that can sometimes be a really difficult ask, especially for, again, the people who didn't necessarily know that and didn't know to take it that seriously. Never mind if you declare bankruptcy. Bankruptcy stays on the credit report for 10 years. Imagine, again, at the age of 18, your actions have consequences that last potentially until you are 28 years of age. 28-year-old you is not necessarily going to be happy with 18-year-old you if mistakes are happening. We'll bring this back onto the heat because we're just about ready. This is beginning to cook through, which is very exciting. Let's set that to medium low. I'm going to set my timer now because it is starting to bubble and boil. We're going to give it maybe 7 minutes. No, we'll give it 5 more minutes. I'm going to flip this actually because the water is beginning to evaporate off of it. So the bottoms are looking nice and white the way that I need them to look, but the tops are still very pink. So we'll give it a flip. All right, credit report is no joke. Here's another fun one. Or I guess not so fun one, but that's okay. All right. Depending on the lender, they could pull any one of your 3 credit reports. There are 3 major credit reporting bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And by law, these 3 companies are not allowed to talk to one another. Okay? And this is what I mean when your credit score with one entity might be one thing, but a credit score and a credit pull in a different place is going to look totally different. It's because you don't necessarily know which credit reporting agency this company is going to check and look into you and to check your reputation. You've got somebody out there who's been tracking you since you began your credit journey. They've tracked every history of payment. Thank goodness dogs eat carrots. Amy loves them. Oh, hold for Beep. Hi, Bee. Good boy. He's now very good at catching. Crunch, crunch. All right, check for lightning frost. Oh, we got it. And we got it quick too. Exciting. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna put in about 1/3 cup of butter. There we go. Sizzle. You don't want your butter to burn. You know that smell? The brown butter smell? I'm gonna put this back in the fridge so it doesn't melt. It is so hot in here. I'm gonna go in now with the veg. It already smells so good. It is crazy how quickly vegetables can just fill your home with delicious, delicious aromas. Veggie scrap bag. We're gonna have to make some stock next week. This is not even wanting to close anymore. Very exciting. All right. So by law, right, these agencies aren't talking to one another because they literally can't. It's your responsibility to keep them up to date and keep them looking uniform and the same for your own benefit of, again, like what is being reported on one account. Means our chicken's just about cooked through. We'll give that a skim. Completely forgot to do that. We'll do a spoon, this one. And just so you're familiar with what I mean by like skimming off the bits on top, you'll see here, there's this like white, gross, foamy stuff. It's really just like the impurities and the fat, not even the fat, but the impurities of the chicken. So I'm gonna skim off the top, and once that's done, the chicken should also be done. We're gonna set aside about 2 cups of this chicken broth that we've just made. It's going to add delicious flavor to our chicken pot pie. I'm also going to give this one more flip. I'm seeing some spots here now that need some love. We talked about a little bit of what the credit report. It's also got things like your contact information, different addresses that you've lived at, just because obviously once upon a time we needed, the credit card companies used to need to be able to mail things to you. But let's talk further about like the importance of credit and credit worthiness, because I feel like I'm bouncing all over the place. It's been a little bit of a day. The credit bureaus, the credit reporting agencies, your lenders are not the only ones who care about your trustworthiness and your reputation. Depending on where you are in life, your landlords will ask to pull your credit, all right? Because if you're good at making payments on your loans and your credit card, then they can trust and assume that you will be good for making rent payments on time. If you work for the military, if you work for the federal government and you have a clearance, your credit gets checked regularly, because again, if I can trust you with being a financially responsible adult, then odds are I can trust you with highly sensitive information, and you're not necessarily going to be finding yourself in a financial pinch anytime soon and hoping to sell information to interested third parties that Uncle Sam perhaps does not want you selling information to. We've got our impurities here. Gross, but necessary, because now they're not in there anymore, and that's good. Our chicken is just about ready for the next step. I'm going to, like I said, set aside. We'll see if I'm successful getting 2 cups out of there. And there's still quite a few impurities, so I'm going to get a skimmer out. A little skimmer, just to help prevent more of those impurities from getting in. Yay. That's almost precisely what we need. It's going to have to be good enough because that's all we've got. We set this aside, the chicken, let it cool for a little bit because we're going to start trying to shred it, and I don't want you to burn yourself as we do that. We'll go ahead and move this to the sink. And now we've got some delicious looking veggie broth. Excuse me, not veggie broth, chicken broth. I'm so excited for this. All right. Our vegetables are beginning to get that translucent kind of, our onions especially, are getting to be that like translucent, soft shape, which is so exciting. I'm going to take 2, these are tiny, so I guess we'll take a really big third one. And then there's like 1 serving left. Garlic, very exciting. Crush, crush. Release that allicin. Get it out of the casing, the peel, more easily. And we'll drop that in with the vegetables. So, Uncle Sam cares about your credit. Your employer cares about your credit. Same sort of concept, right? Depending on what you're doing in life. I mean, sure, if you want to work in finance and you don't have good credit, Imagine what would happen if your customers found out, like, don't tell me what to do with my money if you don't have good credit and you don't, like, you don't do what you're supposed to be doing with it. But even people who work in like construction, for example, right, who have nothing to do with finance, when you're dealing with very expensive equipment and machinery, again, you need to be trustworthy. You need to be vetted. And this is a way that your employers can look at you and vet you and screen you. Trash. Your utility companies will also check your credit. There's a lot of people who care about this reputation that you're trying to build for yourself. Okay? So please do take it seriously. Now, let's say you're not sure what they're seeing and that concerns you. Valid. Again, when so many people care about your credit, that is something to be concerned about. Here's what you do. You, by law, are entitled to check your credit from each of the 3 reporting agencies once per year. You have the right to pull your credit and it will not impact your credit score. It will not count as one of those inquiries that we talked about in the last video of who's checking your credit and who's looking into you. The credit that gets pulled is what we call a soft pull. It does not impact your credit score, which is that very vital number. And every time people look into you, if it is a hard inquiry, that score goes down, with a few exceptions, which we could talk about if we've got time. So what we do now, going back to here, is we're going to add flour, salt, pepper, 1 more bouillon cube. So for our flour, I want about 1/3 of a cup. Should be light and airy. We don't want a packed third. Let me know if you guys are interested in doing baking stuff. I'm not a huge baker. I used to be a huge baker. I'm not a huge baker anymore. But I'm interested in what you guys want to see more of content-wise. So if baking content is something that you would be interested in, let me know. I'm happy to get into it. So 1/3 of a cup of flour goes in. We're going to sprinkle this around, and you want to start moving pretty quickly. You don't want your flour to burn. We're making what is called a roux. I am going to add a little bit more salt. I'm going to add my bouillon cube. I lost my bouillon cube. And I'm going to add a little bit more pepper just over the top. Moving relatively quickly. I'm also going to add just a little bit of crushed red pepper because I can. Just a little kick, just a little heat to it. Nothing crazy. And we're going to give this a good stir until the flour is dissolved and these flavors are melded. All right. Wow, this looks so good. All right, flour is basically dissolved. You want this continuously moving. And now this will act as a thickening agent along with the water that we're about to pour back in. That away. We also want our milk here. A cup of milk. And I'm going to be honest, I completely lost my train of thought with regards to what we were talking about for credit. Oh, who checks into you, who cares, right? And then ways for you to check into yourself. By law, you are entitled to see what these people are seeing once per year. When COVID happened, that number increased to once per week, but credit doesn't really move that quickly. Credit doesn't really change all that much, all that fast. So I don't know that it's really necessary to check it every single week, but at least as of when I last checked, you were able to still check it once per week. Basically what wound up happening is because when we all went online and started giving out our credit card information to anybody and everybody because we needed to, we couldn't necessarily go out and shop in person and try things on and so on and so forth. The opportunities to steal credit increased significantly and people took advantage of that. Scammers did. So you now, again, as of when I last checked, you now have the ability to check your credit at least once a week from each of the 3 credit bureaus. If it ever goes back to the once per year, which is what the law says needs to be done, I would recommend timing it strategically. Okay, let's throw out your trash. Preheat your oven to 425. And I'm going to start shredding my chicken. Hopefully it is soft enough now that I can. We're just going to cut it into like little cubes so that it can be ready for the next step. What I mean by strategically timing it is if you're not actively doing one of those things that we just discussed, looking for a new place to stay, looking for new utility companies, looking for a new job, looking for a new loan, looking for anything, well then you don't necessarily, not too much should be changing with your credit beyond just like making sure that you're good with your payments. That's the most active your credit should be, and that doesn't necessarily need regular checking. Okay, chicken into, again, about the size of our frozen veggies, just for those of you who have never had chicken pot pie before, which if you have never had chicken pot pie before, I'm excited for you to join us and for you to try this. If not too much is changing beyond just you making regular routine payments, you paying off loans and doing that kind of stuff, then you don't really need to be checking all that frequently. So maybe if we do one credit report in January, and then we can do the next credit report in May, and we'll do the 3rd credit report and last credit report towards like September, it's a pretty good way to trust that if nothing major is changing between those and you don't see anything worth looking further into, worth disputing. I'm going to remove these extra pieces of fat and stuff. I don't necessarily want a big fatty bite. So long as there's nothing of concern when you're pulling these, then just once per year should be enough, all right? Now, if something happens where you decide to change jobs or you decide to take out a loan or what have you, right? That's when the strategic timing doesn't necessarily work as effectively. Maybe you change up the cycle a little bit and you check to see what's going on with them all at once, just to be sure that regardless of which report gets pulled, you know what they are seeing and you know what to expect them to tell you. Okay? Because at the end of the day, if you get denied a loan or you get denied an opportunity based on your credit, there is nothing that says that entity needs to share anything with you about why. They can mail you a copy of the report that they pulled for you to look into later, and that might have some rationale and some clarity as to why. But in the moment when they say things like, ooh, sorry, but you've been denied, they don't have to tell you what they're seeing. They don't owe you an explanation. And many of them won't give it to you just to avoid that conflict, to avoid that confrontation. We've got our mixture simmering here and thickening up. I'm very excited. Ooh, this is looking so good. It's still pretty liquidy, but it's definitely getting thicker, which is good. Man, I'm excited. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. No, actually, I'm not. I lied. I'm not. So don't let it be a surprise, right? Look at what they are seeing, right? Do your own research and ask yourself, based off of this credit report that I'm pulling, is everything factual? Is everything truth? And if it is, would I lend money to somebody like me? Not knowing their story, not hearing their background, their pleas, their hardships, their woes, but just looking at this piece of paper, would I lend money to somebody like me? And hopefully the answer is yes. I sincerely hope that you consider yourself to be creditworthy. If you don't consider yourself to be creditworthy, or if you're worried that someone else might think that you're not, okay, let's talk about what we can do about that. First, if you're worried about what you're seeing and you're worried that you're not creditworthy, make sure that it is in fact you who is making yourself not credit worthy, right? And what I mean by that is when your identity gets stolen, the scammers, well, actually, the scammers nowadays are trying to make you look good. They're into like the longer cons. But generally speaking, right, if I steal your credit card, if I steal your identity, I'm going to go on a spending spree and I'm going to do it quick. And I'm not going to worry about how it makes you look or anything like that. If I open up an account under your name in Bank of Billings, Montana, which, like, shout out to my Billings peeps, whoever you are out there. Right, if I open up an account under your name in a place like Bank of Billings, Montana, and you've never been to Billings, Montana, who's to say then that it's you making you look bad and not me, who is intentionally trying to take advantage of you and will take your credit in the process? Check in and make sure that the accounts are in fact you. They are you're doing your name, your information, and it's not somebody else acting maliciously pretending to be you. Okay? Now, let's dive a little further down that rabbit hole. What if it is? What if someone has stolen your identity and they've opened up fraudulent accounts under your name and they are tanking your credit and they don't care? Okay? Immediately follow the instructions on the website. Did I give you the website? I don't think I gave you the website. That's annualcreditreport.com. Annualcreditreport.com is where you go to get your credit reports from each of the 3 credit reporting agencies once per year for free by law. I understand that it's a .com and that makes people a little suspicious. It's because the 3 credit reporting agencies are commercial entities, right? It can't be annualcreditreport.gov because it's not the government that's running these credit checks and keeping tabs on you. They're just accessing it at their convenience when they need to. Give this another little stir. Cool. Okay, we're getting nice and thick, which is good. Make sure you're not sticking to the bottom like I am a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead. This is getting nice and thick. So exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off this heat and remove it. We're going to let that start cooling. It's definitely not going to finish cooling yet, but that's okay. We will move on. So annualcreditreport.com. I'm sorry, y'all. That's where you can pull your credit reports for free. If you find suspicious activity, each one of them tells you, like on that page that you pull the report, what to do. And I need you to be wary of Googling this because, of course, imposters would love to get the information that you're seeking and requesting. Just type it straight into the URL. Don't Google it. Don't passcode. Don't collect $200. Okay? When you go to this website and request this, you're going to have to type in your social security number. You're going to have to type in some very personal information about yourself. Do it in a place that is safe and secure, because you are essentially handing your identity to yourself, but to anyone else who passes by that screen and sees what you're doing. So please, if you're going to do this in a public setting, don't. But make sure that you're logged out after you have finished using it. Make sure that no one is looking over your shoulder. You're not on a public network. Take this seriously, because this is a very unfortunate way to get your identity stolen, is by trying to look into seeing if anyone's stealing your identity. For those of you who are my stovetop people, all right, I'm going to start transferring to the oven now. What you can do if you don't have the stovetop is you can make a delicious, like, chicken pot pie with dumpling dish. You're gonna see me now put the chicken back into my pot. It should be just about cooled off. I'm gonna transfer this over here so you all can see it a little bit better. Put the chicken back in. Get the pieces that fell out because you're a dingus. We're done with this now. We get our frozen veggies. Right? You only need about a cup of them. First, spill them on your counter. Second, we're gonna use this. All right. 8 ounces, 1 cup. And I'm gonna pour it in here. We'll put it here. I do want this to cool before adding in and moving on to the next step. So I am putting the frozen veggies directly in with the intent to try to get it to cool off a little bit faster. You don't want hot filling going into cold pan, cold dough. So you find out that your identity's been stolen. Follow the instructions on those websites to say, if you need to dispute this, do so. If you see that a random account has been opened up at Bank of Billings, Montana, call Bank of Billings, Montana. They will have a fraud department. They will be able to help you. It is a matter of urgency. This is not something that you sit on that you're not sure of or anything. If you are concerned that your identity has been stolen and your credit report shows that, run, do not walk, okay? Call the lender, right, the account owner, like Bank of Billings, Montana, to let them know what's going on. Call the credit bureaus, the credit reporting agencies, to let them know what's going on, all right? The faster you act, the better the odds that you can get this remedied in a timely, efficient manner. Awesome. For those of you who are oven baking this alongside me, I'm gonna do something a little unorthodox. Use a 9x13 pan. We'll take out our pie crusts, and I'm going to lay both of mine on the bottom. If you only bought 2 pie crusts, this is where it is probably just best for you to stick with the 9-inch pie tin. First, unroll and pray that it didn't melt together. Gentle, otherwise you lose pieces. Oh, this is not gonna cooperate. Dang. All right, well maybe this will be the top. I do still want to undo this, but we'll let it sit for a little bit. Please, please, please. Just go really slow. You have to be patient. I'm not always patient, but it's beneficial to be. Nope, this one's ripping too. We'll keep trying, just because it's going a little bit better than the first one did, but not much. This is gonna make for a really good like checkered pattern on top. Let me see if my other 2, let's see if my backup crusts are better. Oh, I'm assuming right off the rip it's not. Shoot. Let's see. Oh, it's coming off much cleaner, which is good. I didn't realize that this was going to be the hardest part. Oh, come on, baby. We're almost there. Okay, well, this one is good enough that it's going to be our base. It's definitely not perfect, and I am going to push these pieces together just to kind of better align them and combine them. We're getting creative here, y'all. I'm gonna take this piece, put it here. We'll take this piece. Don't get frustrated, get creative. Anyway, disputing that credit report, time is of the essence. Get in contact with those people who are involved, right? The people who own the account, the people who are reporting on this activity, thinking that it's you. And the faster that you can dispute and resolve it, the faster that you can get it taken off your credit report. Assume that the accounts are in fact all yours. They are reflecting your information, and it's just not what you would like to see, and it's not what you would like others to see as well. All right, I'm going to take these extra pieces and just lay them over the top. We'll fold this down over the top here because it's got these extras. Wow, this is actually coming together. I'm despite the setbacks, I'm actually very happy. And we'll just gently lay these on top. There's a few things that you can do, but none of them are going to be quick, immediate fixes. And I want to manage expectations and say that right now. Credit takes time. It is trust. And think back to the last time that someone betrayed your trust. How long did it take for them to regain it? Did they ever regain it? Or did you simply just say, I'm not gonna wheel and deal with you anymore? Which is you're right. Hi, Amy. We cut them loose and we move on our merry way. And hopefully you're better off for it, and hopefully they're better off for it. In terms of what you can do to help improve your credit worthiness, it is to go back to those basics of making those payments on time, managing our utilization, keeping it below 30% of the credit limit, paying down the debts that we owe. This is actually going to go in now. We're going to put this in for 45 minutes until the crust starts getting golden brown. We'll finish off with what to do about credit. And then, much like yesterday, I'm going to let you take this next 45 minutes, or 40 minutes once I finish talking, to you. So, what do we do to make it right? Again, start making payments and make them on time, at least the minimum monthly balance. All right, whatever the credit card company is saying you owe at the end of that billing cycle, pay at bare minimum the minimum. Amy, I love you. You're very much in the way right now. Start making those payments on time. Keep that utilization below 30%. So again, if you've got a credit limit of $10,000, don't be using it for more than $3,000. It's dinner time for her and she knows it. She's a very bossy girl. Keep tabs on those accounts and make sure that what is supposed to be there is there and what's not supposed to be there is not there. Dispute what is not supposed to be there. You know what? I'll finish off with capacity, collateral, and character. And I will talk next week about paying down debts, because that is a whole additional meal to itself. We'll finish off with capacity, collateral, and character. That's what it all boils down to. All right, you go to a lender and you say, hey, can I pretty please borrow some money? The three things that they're going to care about boil down to character, your credit report. Are you going to pay them back when you pinky promise you'll pay them back? All right. Are you looking good on paper? They check for character. The second thing that they check for is capacity. Do you have the ability to pay back the money you are asking to borrow? When I say pretty please, can I borrow $300,000 for a mortgage? I promise I'll pay it back in these installments. Well, do I have regular income coming in so that I can pay it back in installments? Or am I just crossing my fingers and praying, right? Character. Am I trustworthy? Am I legit? My credit report will tell them that. Capacity. Do I have enough money coming in that I can afford to borrow the money and pay it back in the future? That's when they look at account balances. They look at W-2s or proof of income, proof of big paychecks, things like that. And the last thing is collateral. What happens or what can happen if you don't pay it back? Okay. Generally speaking, if you stop making payments on a house, the bank will foreclose on it. If you stop making payments on a car, the bank will have it repossessed. Okay. And because there is that collateral, there is that additional incentive to you better pay or we're taking it away, interest rates on those types of loans and those lines of credit, like a HELOC, a home equity loan, or a home equity line of credit, they tend to have relatively low interest rates compared to credit cards, because if you don't make good on them, well, they can take it back and they can resell it, and they can recoup most of their money, if not all of it, because you're going to continue to pay what you owe as well. Okay. A credit card doesn't work like that, and as such, the interest rates tend to be higher on credit cards. All right. Because the bank's not going to just come to your house and like cut up your card. There are other consequences. There are other things that they can do, but there isn't necessarily that collateral. So they get that collateral then through higher interest rates. This has been a lot. I know my brain is fully saturated. I would imagine yours is too. So we've got about 40 minutes left on our timers, and at that point, the chicken pot pies will be ready to pull out of the oven. You let them sit for a little bit. If you serve immediately, it's going to become like a runny, soupy mess. Let it sit, let it cool a little bit, maybe like 10-15 minutes before serving. It'll still be hot, I promise, but it won't be quite so soupy. But yeah, go take some time for you. Go journal about how your day's been, how your week has been. talk, plan out your weekend, maybe see what you're excited to do. Hopefully you get out of this house and enjoy this weather. Hopefully the weather is gorgeous for you wherever you are. Hopefully you're able to take a deep breath, maybe do some meditation, maybe just sit on the couch and watch TV, maybe do a workout, take the dogs out, feed the dogs because they're nagging you. Whatever it is, take care of you. Thank you for doing this kindness for yourself. I hope that you enjoy. Bon appetit.